3, 2, 1.
I had kind of a love-hate relationship with the crew. It was ambitious, I'll give it that, and trekking across the US with friends was pretty damn fun, but the storytelling was insipid, the map was lifeless, and at least before the updates, you were just grinding on that same jump distance event hoping to god you got that dumb level 50 platinum part you needed to max your car's level out. It also had a questionable physics and handling model, and the economy was worse than the Great Depression. Thankfully, after having played the beta for the Crew 2 for a couple of hours, I can say with confidence that a lot of the issues I had with the game have been completely eradicated. Well, most of them. Still a few bumps on the road here and there, but the Crew 2, even in beta form, is already miles ahead of its predecessor. For those uninformed, the Crew was part cop drama, part arcade racer, part MMO, and it always felt like those separate parts were at odds with each other, creating a very disjointed experience. But the Crew 2 does away with that cop drama crap and puts the focus squarely on racing, and it's so much better for it. And even better, this time around you're not just limited to cars and bikes, but boats and planes as well. First off, arguably most importantly, the handling is so much better this time around, which is good because the ice skating physics of the original were pretty annoying after a while. It may take a while to adjust to how responsive the cars are when you turn, but overall everything just feels so much better, from the sense of speed to the way your car drifts. And this extends to the boats and planes as well. Everything's extremely arcadey and not at all realistic, but it's still very enjoyable. In the first Crew you start out doing a bit of street racing before working your way to other disciplines, which all sort of blended with each other. Like, was there really that much difference between performance and circuit spec cars? Not really. This time around you choose from 4 different disciplines from the get-go, each further having another 4 classes of vehicles to master within. You'd expect to click on the boat and just get boat races, but nah, it's all about professional racing. So you'll get to tame some touring cars and even open wheel races, which I think is good because I was worried that a quarter of the game was going to be dedicated to boats, and that would have been, I don't know, not that great. I'm happy we're getting boat and plane racing to mix things up, but I'm glad the focus is still squarely on cars, but others might see it differently. No doubt you've seen it by this point, but you can actually switch between car, boat and plane at any time while in free roam by clicking in the right stick. I don't see much of a practical use for this, but I spent a little while just fucking around with it, switching to my plane, getting up as high as I could, then switching back to car mode and watching my Audi plummet to its doom. It doesn't actually wreck your car, but it's still fun to dick around with. It's like Sonic All-Stars Racing transformed, but not. The beta tells you to piss off and play something else once you've reached the next level, so I couldn't see everything career-wise, but it's hard to tell not only if the career mode will be long enough, or whether the economy will actually be decent, but I'm hopeful that it'll all turn out well with the full release. I was earning about 15,000 bucks for winning races, and low-end cars cost between 20 and 50,000, with high-end ones costing hundreds of thousands, which seems perfectly reasonable, even if it's a bit weird that a 2014 Golf costs 130,000 bucks. I'm also hoping that the Crew 2 will avoid the problem of being stuck in your starter car for most of the game like the original had. This shouldn't be as much of a problem this time around, as you buy different cars for different disciplines instead of having a car that can take on different specs, but I'm just a little worried that you'll get your first car for each discipline and then use it to just beat all the events, but with how much money I was getting, I think it should be okay. So long as it doesn't turn out like Need for Speed Carbon, where you get very little time to actually use the cars and parts you unlock, it'll be fine. I believe I'm overreacting here, but racing games with bugger all events are my pet peeve. Should be okay, I'm overreacting, don't worry about me. One of the issues I found that I can tell is going to piss me off is the story. What story, you ask? Didn't they get rid of the story? Well, yes and no. See, in getting rid of Troy Baker's quest for whatever the fuck he did in the first game, the Crew 2 ends up replacing it with this kind of weird, douchey pseudo-story for each of the disciplines. For example, if you choose street racing, you're told that they want to take street racing to the next level and make it legit, but oh no, there's some guy in a McLaren who doesn't want that. And that's kind of it. Oh, but don't worry, you'll get plenty of cutscenes before and after every race, even if you don't give a shit. Imagine the MCs from Need for Speed Pro Street, but somehow even more annoying and behind with the times. Like, I guess it was neat that in one of the races they were like, keep an eye on that Abarth 500, that thing's gonna be quick. And I scoffed, because who the fuck drives that little piece of shit? And then it just makes like my dad and takes off. But I can see these cutscenes and interactions grating on your ears after a while. Seriously, I don't know who this dude is, but I'm about ready to tow him up the ass.
Hey, I just rigged things so you can fast swap between 2 vehicles of any type. Who's got your back? Me. It's me, I do.
Other than that, I don't have too many complaints, so I'm just going to list some things that I took note of while I was playing. There's bugs, which are to be expected as this is a beta and it's also a Ubisoft game, but it's just a mildly noticeable pop-in and the odd physics blunder here and there. nothing major. You can immediately teleport to any event on the map, which kind of takes a bit of the fun out of exploring the map and going on road trips across the country, which the first game, despite its empty world, did pretty well. Flying planes is fun, but some of the events ask you to perform stunts, which I'll admit were more difficult than they should have been. It was hard to tell what angle I was at, whether my plane was level or I was heading directly up or whatever. Some sort of indicator on screen showing us what angle and direction we're facing would help massively in fixing this. There's an actual livery editor now. It's nice that everybody will have a different paint job now instead of a pre-made one that likely everybody was using. You actually have a house that you can go back to, explore and display vehicles in, so I'm assuming that we're going to be able to buy more, which would be pretty nice. Brings back fun memories of Test Drive Unlimited too. The menus and HUD aren't super unique or anything, but they are very pleasing to the eye and miles better than the Crew's drab blacks and thin fonts. Soundtrack's business as usual. You know, you got your Black Keys and Black Rebel Motorcycle Club and Tame Impala and shit. It fits, but it's not very unique at all. I'll be tuning into Spotify while playing this anyway, so I don't really care. And there are plenty of cars to choose from. Street Spec alone has around 100 cars, and while some of these cars will appear in other specs, there's definitely no shortage of fly wheels to choose from. Or whatever the kids say, I don't know. So yeah, there's my thoughts on the Crew 2 beta. I'm not sure if I left anything out or not, but if you have any specific questions, then go ahead and hit me up in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. As for what I think, while I'm not certain that I'll be picking up the Crew 2 at launch, this is definitely a much better direction for the series. And hopefully, the Crew 2 can be the game the Crew couldn't be, provided they get the economy right. Oh, wait, there's microtransactions, never mind!